In this session, I want to speak to you about your responsibilities as a facilitator. Very important points for you to note that will either make or break your school, that will ensure the success of the school. The first thing that you need to understand is that you are the responsible person in the school. You are responsible to your pastor. You're responsible to the leadership that you relate to. You are responsible to the students, and you are responsible to the regional oversight of live school in your area. And as long as you can understand that you are in a position of responsibility, I believe it really will help you to run the school. The second thing I want to say to you is that you are responsible to recruit the students. A lot of people would want to come along and say, you know, I think you should take this one, I think you should take that one. Ultimately, I believe that you need to make sure that you have the right students on board. You need to be the one that goes to your pastor and say, you know what, on this Sunday, I'd like you to make the announcement that the school is going to start on whatever the date is, and then ask the pastor to also get his weight behind bringing people, bringing an awareness of the school to the people so that they could make a decision. Why should he do that? Because if he does, then the people realize the pastor really is excited about the school actually running. I also want to say, as you recruit your students, don't just recruit them from your own church. Look around at some of the churches around you, because there may be a whole lot of them, or a whole lot of people out there that would love to be trained, that want to serve the Lord, that have been looking for something like this for a long time. In actual fact, we oftentimes get people say, I've been praying for years to find something that could equip me to actually reach the lost. And so look around. You may be surprised to find out how or where you find other students. And then, of course, the other thing that I've done with great success in the past is I've taken my students and I've put them on almost a road show. Whilst we are going through the school, I send them to churches and different places, and I let them tell their story of what God's doing in and through their lives, because people, when they hear that, they're like, maybe I also want to be part of that. And so, second responsibility is then a responsibility to recruit students. The third thing is, it is your responsibility to arrange a suitable venue where the school is going to be presented. And that may be, and it may be in a church, maybe a room in the church, it may be a lounge in a home, it could be, you know, quite frankly, any kind of place. We have started live schools in a hut. I think some of the most successful live schools are actually run in a lounge or a room where people are sitting relaxed and they're able to watch the videos and then able to talk with each other about what they have learned during that time. Make sure that you choose a safe place where people are not scared to walk to it. Make sure that you choose a place that is reasonably quiet. And I know in some communities that's difficult, but at least try and get to a place where it's not too noisy. Make sure it is convenient for people to come and travel to. If your school is way on the other side of the city, many of your students may not be able to come all the time. Make sure that your venue is well taken care of, that it is clean, that it is well prepared before every session. And make sure that it's closed up and locked up well after you have had your session. The fourth point I want to share with you as your responsibility is to ensure that your equipment is working well. Please don't get to the class and say, oh my goodness, I forgot the TV wasn't working. Make sure your equipment is working before you actually get to the class. And if you can, and you should, get there maybe a half an hour before the time, set up your equipment, test your equipment, make sure that it's working, make sure the electricity is on, make sure there are some, chairs that people can sit on, and maybe a table if they want to write some notes and they maybe want something like that. Just make sure that all of that stuff in the venue is there. Your other responsibility is to take good care of the equipment and the curriculum. First of all, Oftentimes, the television set and the equipment that you're using doesn't belong to you. It belongs to somebody else. And make sure that it's locked away. Make sure that it won't be stolen. We've had that many times over where somebody has left it out and then it gets stolen and they get there for the next class and the TV is gone. Please don't do that. Make sure your equipment is locked in a safe place. I think that's really, really important, to say the least. The sixth point I want to say is, after the session is completed, you need to lead your students in a discussion. What does that mean? That means you need to know what is in the curriculum. You need to know what is in that hour of teaching that you are showing them. Now, if you are the first time facilitator, you may not have gone through the school and you may not have had time to go through an hour's session before you get to the class. If that be the case, you will have to be super attentive during the class that you can make enough notes in which those notes you would say, these I think are the real points to discuss and the real points to talk about. I would suggest that by the time you get to your second intake or your third intake, you will have a much better idea of what the teaching is all about, and you'll be able to kind of pinpoint the key things that you want these people to talk about. But the fact is, you want everybody to participate. I found that sometimes in that discussion, you get 2 or 3 people that they want to hog the thing. You know, they just want to be the ones that are talking. And as a facilitator, you need to literally be able to go around the room and say, well, what do you think about that? And what do you think about this? And actually draw them out. And it's amazing to see when you draw people out how they begin to respond and as they begin to participate. And sometimes those that are quiet are those that bring the greatest value to that discussion. Why do we want to discuss it? Well, think about it. The person has heard the teaching. The person has watched the teacher. That's the beauty of live school. Now the person has the opportunity to talk about that whole situation, and that helps them to cement what this teaching was all about. Now, the seventh thing I want to say to you is once they have watched the video and you have facilitated a discussion around that topic, the seventh thing is ensure that your students are writing their one-page notes. We expect them to write a one-page A4 set of notes on every hour they've watched. What does that mean? Well, that means that by the time they finish the curriculum, they have a file with 240 pages of notes. Now let me say to you, you as the facilitator needs to make sure that each one of them have a file. You need to make sure that when you get together next time you do a teaching, that the first thing you do is can I please have your notes? Then you take those notes, you go home with them, you read through them. That's part of your responsibility. You read through them, you make sure that the student at least has a good understanding of what was said there. Make some comments if you have to. This is not like a school teacher trying to tell them where their grammar is wrong and all that stuff. It's really you want to know, do they understand what was said in that session? And then you'll give it back to them. So don't hold on to the notes. The responsibility is theirs to take care of their notes. But at the end of the school, they'll have these 240 hours or 240 pages of notes. Well, guess what? If they took those 240 pages of notes and went to a place where they plant a church, they could literally preach for 4 years from those notes if they preached one sermon on a Sunday. It would really help them when it comes to planning their church and begin to disciple their people. Ensure that the students, that you press on the students that they keep their notes in a safe place. The worst thing that can happen to them is that they lose their notes, because the 240 pages of notes is the way that they graduate from the school. And unless they have those, they can't graduate. So it's really important that they do that. I also want to say, when they write their notes, encourage them to write them in the form of a sermon almost, so that they have introduction, some of the main points in there and a conclusion at the end. So when they do go and stand in front of a group of people, or they want to share with their friends what they had learned, they kind of in their minds have a very systematic way in which they can share it, or a very systematic way in which they can teach it. The eighth point that I want you to take note of as your responsibility is to be open to minister to the needs of your students. And make no mistake about it. As you go through the live school, there are parts of it that's informative, but there are parts of it that has to do with character development. There are parts of it that has to do with, people that live with bitterness and unforgiveness and all kinds of stuff like that, that needs to be dealt with, because if it's not dealt with, then they're never going to be successful in ministry. And sometimes people have such issues in those areas that if you don't minister to them, they may never be set free. I have found that some of our students, when we got close to them, they got so hurt in their past. They have not known how to forgive people that have hurt them in the past. And because of that, it's something that bugs them all the time. And now here they are in a position where when they go through some of this teaching, where the Lord may surface some of those things. And as He surfaces it, they may just share it with you. When they do, please don't just shift it aside. When somebody takes you into their confidence, whether it's in the group or individually, when somebody takes you into their confidence, make sure you're ministering to it. And let me say this to you, if you're a man, never minister to a lady on her own. And if you're a lady, never minister to a man on his own. Get somebody to join you. Never get into a situation where you compromise either themselves or yourself. But it's still important to be able to minister to them and work through some of those issues that are there that need to be dealt with. The ninth point that I want to share with you is do your administration well. Many of our facilitators fall down on this one because administration is not nice. When I started out in the ministry, I thought that I was going to be teaching and preaching 95% of the time, and I was going to be doing a couple of other things just 5% of the time. And to my absolute amazement, I found out that I spend more time with administration than I do in actual ministry. It's not wrong, it's right, because you need to do what you do well. And to be able to do that well, you need to make sure that you are doing what you're doing in terms of admin well. Send your reports to your pastor on time. Send your reports to your live school representative on time. Don't let the guy, from a regional perspective, be phoning and sending emails and how's it going, and tell us the stories. Tell us what's going on there. We want to know what's happened in church planning. We want to know who's helped somebody to establish a vegetable garden, or somebody to start a business, or we want to know about people's lives that have been changed. Why? Why do we want to know? Because we can tell those stories to others that will encourage them to do a better job. And I think that's really important. Make sure that you build a file for every one of your students. So whatever information you get, whatever information you kind of, when you're speaking to them and etc., you put it all into that file so that one day when you need to, and you referred back to that student, you can open it up and say, oh, I remember who the student is. This is who they were. This is where they're from, etc. And why do you need that information? Not just for one day when you want to look back, but sometimes you send them on outreach and there's something has gone wrong in their home or at their hometown. Now you need to connect with father, mother, family, whatever. You're going to need telephone numbers. You're going to need contact addresses. You're going to need to know where they are. So administration is really critical as your responsibility in the live school. And then the last one, of course, and you're going to have a whole session on this, is how to arrange your outreaches. But I want to say to you, it is your responsibility to arrange an outreach. Please don't go solo on this. Go talk to your pastor about where should the outreach be. Why do I say that? Because the pastor probably has an area that he feels like this is the next place where we're going to plant a church. And it would not be wise for you to want to go and do an outreach over here when he's trying to plant a church over there. Rather, get the church behind you, get the pastor behind you, get the people behind you, and let them see that you are working in advancing the kingdom in the right way. Ensure that your students know what is expected of them during the outreach. And I'm sure in the next one of the other sessions, you will be told that in no uncertain terms. When you do prepare your outreach, give every one of your students a specific job. Don't let everybody stand around wondering what to do next. Let everyone know what they have to do and how you expect them to do it. This will help you to develop their skills. It will help you see the progress in the student. You'll begin to understand how the student is growing in the Lord. And at the end, make sure you spend time to debrief. At the end of every outreach, spend time to debrief them. What was the outcome? What did we learn? What is the follow-up strategy? And then make sure that you give your students the opportunity to give feedback to the church, to give feedback to their families, to give feedback to their friends. Why? Because the church would be excited about these people that are being trained. The family will be excited about their family members. They're doing something in the kingdom. And their friends, when they hear it, may just say, I want to join as well. And I think these are probably some of the most important responsibilities for you as a facilitator. My prayer is, you'll be a great facilitator, and there's no reason why you cannot be. May the Lord bless you as you take people into your school, and as you develop them, and as you release them to go and do what God's called them to, and recruit the next group, and release them to go and do what God's called them to. And who knows who you're actually training, and who you're actually raising up to become great men and great women of God in the kingdom. The Lord bless you.